The era we refer to as World War II is chock full of really cool and interesting gun designs. Some might call them beautiful, but because the definition of beauty does change over time, and well, not everybody likes classic designs, I don't know why. Therefore, interesting is probably the right term here. However, some of these classic designs do become the forerunners of modern day firearms, like the STG-44. When we talk about World War II, we're always talking about the big hitters, the Garand, the Thompson, the M1 carbine, and of course the venerable 1911. It's as if we really prepared for this episode of RedWolf TV. But there are some lesser known guns out there that I'm pretty sure you guys can instantaneously recognize the shape. You may not remember the name. It's kind of like watching that movie where you kind of know the guy, the actor or the actress, and you know the face, right? But you just, for whatever reason, you just can't remember the name. Surely you've seen this gun before, but at the same time, I'm also sure that some of you out there don't know its name. The PPSH is actually featured in a lot of video games and movies across many genres, but it seems to always be overshadowed by its American counterpart of the time, the Thompson. Looking at the PPSH today, it's still a timeless piece of Russian craftsmanship in my humble opinion. However, you may also be scratching your head at the title, asking yourself, really though? And let me tell you, there's actually more similarity to these two guns than you may believe. The PPSH started its production back in 1941, but it didn't enter Soviet service until 1943. Now, by the end of World War II, over 5 million were produced, and it saw action extensively in World War II and the Korean War. It was also a participant in Vietnam as well. The gun here features a real wood stock, though I do think it looks a little too nice and too clean. I would have loved for them to kind of rough it up or weather it a little bit. Although I guess you can do that yourself for a little bit more added authenticity. The angle of the stock feels nice, and it shoulders well. Surprisingly, it also doesn't add too much overall weight. Up front is where I personally think it stands out the most. The handguard is all metal and very slim, featuring large windows for heat to dissipate. When you're designed to shoot 900 to 1,000 rounds per minute, you're going to need all the ventilation you can get. The front of the handguard is angled, which gives it a very sleek and, dare I say, modern kind of look. Atop the handguard is the hooded front sight, which is very easy to read. Not so much the rear sight. Now, this is no fault of ARES, but it's something I've noticed on a lot of Russian guns, no matter they be classic or modern, mind you. The rear sight has always been difficult to read, and it kind of, well, I'd say this, takes time to get used to. Well, that's probably because we're not Russian, and a lot of these guys were left behind enemy lines, and maybe the Russians thought, hey, let me under-engineer the rear sight, so it takes time for them to get used to how to aim rifle. The gun also features front and rear sling mounts for your 2-point slings. I said the Thompson was the PPSH's American counterpart, and it would be remiss of me if I don't show you guys a more detailed comparison between those two guns. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce the Thompson in all of its glory. They do share some similarities. It has a blazing fast rate of fire, even though it's not as high as the PPSH. They both shoot a pistol cartridge, and they saw action on opposing sides of the war, and even well after World War II into Korea and even Vietnam. Now, looking at these two guns, you can almost feel the history being presented here. Furthermore, you can see the difference in design philosophies both countries took when it came to their manual of arms. First, let's look at the fire selector on the Thompson. One of them is for selecting your safety and fire. The other one is to select your firing mode between semi and full auto. Now looking at the PPSH, this lever right here is its firing selector. You push it forwards for semi-auto and you pull it backwards for a full auto. To put the gun on safe, you pull back the charging handle and you take the black nub and you push it in the slot here. You hear a little click and you push. And that's how you put the gun on safe. Now some may say it is much easier to switch between firing modes on the PPSH, but I would say it is way easier to switch between safe and fire on the Thompson. For the magazine release of the Thompson, it's right here. And it's very reminiscent of some of the more modern manual of arms that we have, where the control scheme is somewhere within where your finger can reach. For the PPSH, the magazine release lever is right underneath it here. And you have to flip it forward and downwards like this before you can pull the drum mag out. Not the easiest solution. Both guns, though, do feature a tract to guide their respective magazines into the breech, because mag wells, well, they just weren't existent back in the day. Capacity-wise, the PPSH has got the Thompson beat. 330 round box mag, 2,000 round drum. Loading the PPSH magazine does require a little bit more work than the Thompson. First, you have to unscrew the magazine and then undo the latch. Then you remove the top of the magazine to see the insides. Now this is where you pour your BBs. Now after you've done all of that, you do the same in reverse and you pop it back in. Good thing that it is 2,000 rounds. Finally, the most subjective part, ergonomics. The Thompson feels very good in hand. However, I'm not too big of a fan of this particular grip, but shouldering the gun feels great, provides a good cheek, and it just aligns your eyes to this sight picture. And your hand just naturally comes up top and grips this wooden handguard. One thing I have to say though, the Thompson, I think, has a far superior rear sight to the PPSH. The front sight, on the other hand, it's just not as good. Like I mentioned earlier, the PPSH also shoulders very well, and I do prefer its grip over the Thompson. The sight picture, it's okay. Again, we've already talked about the rear sight. One thing I do notice though is when you watch those history documentaries or any kind of older TV show featuring this thing, you see a lot of people grab it here by the magazine. That's probably due to the fact that this handguard gets way too hot for you to put your hand on it. Not to mention, if you shoot it like this, right, you run the risk of having your hand go on top and you just can't see the sights at all. But I can't at the same time imagine how holding it on the magazine can help with recoil mitigation or keeping it shooting flat when you're shooting that many rounds. But then again, this is airsoft, so it doesn't really matter. Now before we get into chronoing and shooting the gun, I do want to talk about its battery compartment and then the hop-up. The whole stock here is the compartment, and it actually comes up to about here. So that's a lot of space for you guys to put your batteries. Now, how do you access that? There's this door here that you can flip down. Easy peasy. Now, if this is too small, don't you worry. There's a button in here, more like a switch. You press that in, and then the plate comes out like that. And you can rotate that down to access a larger cavity for you to put bigger battery types in. I think this is very smart design from ARES to maximize this big stock. Good job. And to access the hop-up, you simply take the charging handle, pull it back, and you can adjust it right there, and you can adjust to your heart's content. Now, if you don't want to hold it back, if you hold it back, click, and then press the safety in, you can just adjust it as you go. And when you're done, just release. I'm using 0.2 gram BBs and an 11.1 LiPo. Here we're back at the warehouse. Feels kind of good to be back here, really. Now we're going to shoot the PPSH. We're going to start with semi-auto. We're going to move on to full auto, and I'll give you my thoughts as how she shoots. So here we go. On semi-auto, it's okay. I felt like I've shot better guns on semi, especially AEGs, but I don't know if you guys realized, this thing is an EBB. Now before we kind of have some fun and put it on full auto, let's go take those results downrange. Not gonna lie, the spread is not exactly ideal. Probably no fault to the gun though. I did have a little bit of a hard time reading that rear sight, but then again, we'll see how she shoots on full auto. Now it's time to shoot this thing on full auto. How it's supposed to be shot. I do feel like with BBs in the magazine, it balances the weight out a little bit. So I would definitely say having this magazine filled up feels way different than having it empty. It puts a lot of weight towards the back of the gun. And just to give you guys an idea, I want to go back to the stock. I have a very long 11.1 in here, and it's completely flush. Thank you, ARES, for utilizing this whole thing. Now, enough of me talking. Time to shoot. Yes! It feels so much better on full auto. Let's go see how much damage we did. These are the results that we're looking for. However, I do have to say, clearly we're shooting a little low. And clearly this is probably my fault. But it was fun though. I don't always get to review Russian guns here on RedWolf TV, but when I get an opportunity, I always take it. So if you want to check out my review of the AK-12, click on the card above, or you can find it in the description below. Now, let's wrap this baby up. Now on paper, do I think that the PPSH is indeed the Russian Thompson? Well, I certainly think so. I mean, think about it. It's kind of wood and metal, uses a pistol caliber round. It's also kind of used in the same usages, but at the same time, I also feel like it's not entirely a Russian Thompson. You see, the Thompson feels like it's well designed, and there is some artistic thought into that particular machine. It feels like an elegant blend of wood and metal, even the M1 variant. With the PPSH, it just feels very hard, very raw. It's wood 1 minute, and all of a sudden, bam! It's just straight up metal. There's just not a whole lot of, I would hate to use it in this kind of a way, artistic styling to this. It was completely made in a rush. They're produced in the middle of the 40s. And that's when like the height of World War II was going on. So you can see that this was something that needed to be produced fast and in large quantities. But we also see this as like a Russian design philosophy. It's practicality and usage over form. So it's function over form. Rough as it may be, the PPSH though, I'm gonna have to give it some kudos. It does look pretty good for a classic Russian firearms, and in some aspects, I feel like it is a little better than the Thompson. The Airsoft variant that we have here today, I'm gonna say it, is pretty fun to shoot. It's an EBB, which is a pleasant surprise. A lot of times when you deal with EBBs, it's either they focus so much on the recoil where it feels sluggish, or they just kind of throw it in there as almost like a last minute addition or a gimmick, and you practically can't feel it at all. Can I feel the recoil coming out of this thing? A little bit. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, this wooden stock does soaks up a lot of that feeling, but I felt like it was pretty consistent when I shot, and it just felt fun to have something more than just the sound of your electric motor go off when you pull that trigger. While I don't want to use modern standards to critique a classic gun, there are a few things that I wish that could have been done a little bit better. Starting with the magazine. Couldn't we have a window on it? Or a door? Something to make the reloading a little less tedious? Wouldn't it be nice? The second thing is, maybe I'm just picky, but this stock, it just looks too clean. It looks too nice. And I'll show you what I mean. Look at this Thompson. Look at all the distressing that it's been through. The wood is all chipped, the magazine's all chipped, the metal looks faded. This is what I expect a World War II rifle to look like. Like it's been through, well, World War II. Now the PPSH from ARES, I think is a pretty cool gun for both collectors and players alike. But most importantly, is it the Russian Thompson? I don't know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think? Do you think the PPSH is the Russian Thompson? Or I'll ask you a better question. Which gun do you think deserves the moniker of Russian Thompson? Or maybe even the other way around, like the American PPSH? Anyways, I want to know all your guys' thoughts, so drop that down in the comment section below. And I'll even go one further. For the comment with the most upvotes or with the most likes, I'll go and make a short video on Instagram talking about your guys' choice on what the alternative to the Russian Thompson would be. So make sure you guys leave comments below. Now, if you want really cool products like this and many more, don't forget to visit our online store at www.redwolfairsoft.com. And I'm not going to finish the whole thing with that ridiculous Russian accent. So if you want cool products, you guys know where to go. If you like this video, click the like button. If you thought it was cool, share it with your friends. Please forgive my terrible Russian accent. My name is Mark, aka Blue Steel. I'll catch you guys on the next episode of RedWolf TV. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know what it is. Have a good one, guys. Hey, Thompson! You gotta do, right? I mean, you got a mic test somehow. No, I was channeling my inner Italian. Hey, Thompson!